What if I told you that one sentence has the power to completely change the way you see your life? Not because it's motivational, not because it's optimistic, but because it's true. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. You've probably heard those words before, maybe on a poster, maybe in a book, maybe scrolling through social media. And like most people, you probably forgot them a few seconds later because they sound too simple, almost cliche. But sometimes the simplest ideas are the ones we spend our entire lives misunderstanding. Think about your morning today. Before your feet even touch the floor, your mind probably traveled somewhere else. Maybe to a mistake you made years ago. Maybe to a conversation you wish had gone differently. Maybe to a goal you still haven't reached. Or maybe to the person you wish you had become by now. It's strange when you think about it. The first thing many of us do every morning isn't experience a new day. It's relive an old one. We carry yesterday into today without even noticing. Not physically, mentally, emotionally, and eventually, we begin to believe that our future has already been written. If you failed before, you'll probably fail again. If you've always been overweight, you'll probably stay that way. If you've always been shy, anxious, lonely, undisciplined, or afraid, that's simply who you are. At least that's what your mind keeps telling you. But here's the problem. Your mind isn't showing you reality. It's showing you familiarity. The brain loves patterns. It looks at your past and quietly assumes your future will follow the same path. It isn't trying to limit you. It's trying to protect you. Because from an evolutionary perspective, predicting tomorrow based on yesterday kept our ancestors alive. The unknown was dangerous. The familiar was safe. But what once protected us can now imprison us. Because growth has never lived inside the familiar. Think about every meaningful change you've ever experienced. Your first day at school, your first job, your first relationship, learning to drive, moving somewhere new. None of those moments felt comfortable. They felt uncertain. And yet they became the moments that shaped your life. That's why this quote matters so much. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Not because yesterday suddenly disappears. It doesn't. Your past will always exist. It will always be part of your story. But there's a difference between carrying your past and allowing it to carry you. One makes you wiser. The other keeps you stuck. So before we go any further, I want you to ask yourself one honest question. How much of your life are you living today? And how much of it are you simply replaying from yesterday? Imagine waking up tomorrow with no memory of who you used to be. No list of your past failures. No embarrassing moments replaying in your head. No voice reminding you of everything you didn't accomplish. Who would you become? It's a strange question. Because most people assume they know exactly who they are. But do they? Or do they simply know the story they've been telling themselves for years? Every person carries an invisible biography, not the one written on paper, the one repeated inside their own mind. I'm not disciplined. I always give up. I'm unlucky. I'm too late. I'm just not that kind of person. At first, they're only thoughts. Then they become beliefs. Eventually, they become identity. And once something becomes part of your identity, your brain begins protecting it, even if it's making you miserable. This is one of the strangest things about human psychology. People don't always choose what makes them happy. They choose what feels familiar. Even suffering can become familiar. Even failure can become comfortable. Not because it feels good, but because it's predictable. Your brain would rather experience a familiar pain than face an unfamiliar possibility. That's why change feels so difficult. It's not usually because the action is hard. Going for a walk isn't hard. Reading 10 pages isn't hard. Putting on your running shoes isn't hard. The difficult part is acting like someone you've never been before. Every new habit quietly asks the same question. Are you willing to become a different person? Most people answer without speaking. They return to yesterday. Think about how often we introduce ourselves. Not with our names, but with our limitations. I'm terrible with money. I've never been confident. I've always struggled with consistency. I could never do that. Listen carefully to those sentences. Every one of them begins in the past. Yet every one of them secretly predicts the future. Without realizing it, we turn memories into prophecies. We confuse repetition with destiny. But repetition is not destiny. It's only repetition, and anything repeated can be interrupted. History is filled with people who completely changed the direction of their lives. Not because they suddenly became fearless, not because life became easier, but because one day they stopped asking, "What have I always done?" and started asking, "What would the person I want to become do today?" That single question changes everything because it shifts your attention away from your past and places it exactly where your life is actually happening. In this moment, right now, not yesterday, not next year, now. Maybe that's why so many people spend years waiting for motivation. They're waiting to feel like a new person before they act. But it almost never works that way. Action comes first. Identity follows. You don't become confident and then take the first step. You take the first step, and confidence quietly grows behind you. You don't become disciplined and then build habits. You build habits, and one day you realize you've become disciplined. The person you want to be isn't waiting somewhere in the future. That person is being built by the choices you're making today. One decision at a time, one ordinary moment after another. And maybe that's what makes this quote so powerful. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Because it reminds you that your past may explain where you've been, but it has absolutely no authority over where you decide to go next. Now think about this for a moment. 5 years from today, the version of you that exists then will look back at this exact day. Not because today was extraordinary, but because today was one of the thousands of ordinary days that quietly shaped who you became. We often imagine that our lives change in dramatic moments. A breakthrough, a life-changing conversation, a perfect opportunity, a new year, a Monday morning, as if transformation arrives with fireworks and music. But that's almost never how life works. Most of the time, your future changes in complete silence. When nobody is watching, when nobody is clapping, when nobody even notices. It changes the moment you decide not to skip today's workout. It changes when you choose to make that difficult phone call. It changes when you put the book down and actually apply what you've learned. It changes every time you keep a promise to yourself. Those moments don't feel important. In fact, they usually feel disappointingly ordinary. But ordinary actions repeated long enough become extraordinary lives. That's the part most people miss. They underestimate what one day can do. Not because one day changes everything, but because one day becomes another, and another, and another, until one morning you wake up and realize you're living a life that once felt impossible. People often ask, when does life finally change? Maybe that's the wrong question. Maybe life is always changing. The real question is, in which direction? Because whether you notice it or not, you're becoming someone every single day. You're never standing still. Every decision is casting a vote for the person you're becoming. Every excuse strengthens one identity. Every action strengthens another. So ask yourself honestly, if someone watched only what you did today, not what you planned, not what you hoped, not what you wished, only what you actually did, who would they say you're becoming? Because intentions don't shape your future. Actions do. And that's both the frightening and the beautiful part. It means yesterday no longer gets the final word. Your mistakes don't get the final word. Your failures don't get the final word. Even your successes don't get the final word. Only today's decisions do. Maybe that's what this quote has been trying to tell us all along. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. Not because today is magically different from every other day, but because today is the only day you can actually influence. Yesterday has already spoken. Tomorrow hasn't spoken yet. Only today is still waiting for your answer. So don't ask yourself whether it's too late. Don't ask whether you've wasted too much time. Don't ask whether you could have started years ago. Ask yourself something much more important. When you look back at this day 5 years from now, will you remember it as just another day, or as the day you finally stopped letting yesterday decide who you would become? Because no matter who you were, no matter what you've done, no matter how many times you've fallen, when you wake up tomorrow, the sentence will still be true. Today is the first day of the rest of your life. And if this video gave you a different way of looking at your own life, make sure to subscribe and join a community of people who believe that real growth begins from within. Leave a comment below and tell me one thing you're going to do today that your future self will thank you for. Because every meaningful change starts with a single decision. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, share it with someone who might need to hear these words, and I'll see you in the next one. Until then, remember, today is the first day of the rest of your life.